Welcome to In Front of Ira,
the podcast where
the podcast where I, Torsten, am the one who remembers how this podcast starts, and she, Sabrina, always makes fun of me for it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's called In Front of Ira. We're talking about romcoms. We're historians. We love romcoms. We love each other, but not that way. Anyway.
Yeah. And this is the podcast in which we discuss those said romcoms and answer the age-old question, will they or won't they? Mostly because we've seen the movie and we will spoil you on the movie. That's kind of why.
And yeah, and is it or isn't it a romantic comedy? Which most of
the time it is a yes, but we just talked off microphone, or not off microphone, off recording the microphone, about the problems of defining rom-coms. So we might have to do that at some point.
What? I think the word you're looking for is off the record.
The record. Well, it's on the record now because I said it. So I don't know what it is.
We're talking about 27 dresses after having just discussed Knocked Up. It's arguably the other most famous Katherine Heigl rom-com.
I think so. It's the only other one that I actually know.
And that people have some fondness for it. I think she does like one with Josh Duhamel or whatever, and like nobody saw that.
I have no idea. Maybe that's for another time.
Yeah,
we are in our Katherine Heigl phase.
Yeah,
so 27 dresses.
Heigl era. It's 27 dresses from 2008. It is
Heiglite, if you will. I'm sorry.
No. The writer of this is Aline Brosh McKenna, who oddly, at least the touch-ups maybe on 3 to Tango, which is the thing we almost discussed.
I feel like he did the things that worked in that movie. I'm just saying, because she's also involved with Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which is amazing.
That's mostly where I know it from. She did Crazy Ex-Girlfriend with Rachel Bloom. But she has also done, I think, a couple other rom-coms, I think, or she did Bride Wars, is that correct?
She definitely did one of those, this is one of those things.
Bride Wars is kind of, it's more about the women, like it's, as the title also suggests. Oh, she did Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah, that's the one. Something and
I think that is definitely her, kind of the movie I think she did that is more critically acclaimed, that people still reference a lot, that actually kind of got a cult following. So, and she does one called Morning Glory with Rachel McAdams that was sort of mid, but she comes off Devil Wears Prada when she does 27 dresses, because Devil Wears Prada is from 2006, and then
I assume that's why she has some cred.
She actually did We Bought a Zoo with Matt Damon, and then Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is a few years later.
Your Place or Mine, which is a Netflix thing with... Was it? It's...
and she did that
Witherspoon and Kutcher.
Cruella movie, which now might explain why I've heard, I've still not watched it because I refuse to watch these things, is actually kind of
by these things, like all of those types of kind of...
but Disney, exactly. Although Maleficent is really good, so, who knows? But anyway, that's Aline Brosh McKenna, and then this is...
You refuse to watch movies that you think will be bad, basically.
Yep. It's directed by Anne Fletcher, who we've encountered on here before because she directed The Proposal with Ryan Gosling and Sandra Bullock, among other things. Mostly
reusing some actors as well here.
Yeah. And 27 Dresses is called that because the protagonist, played by Katherine Heigl, is the classic always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
I wrote in my notes, it's a movie based on an expression.
Yeah. But I think it works because it uses that trope to kind of talk about the fact that clearly she's just a people pleaser. She's that eldest daughter trope. As the Gen Z would call it now. She's like, it's the classic, oh, her mother has died, she has a younger sister, her father had to raise them on her own, and she clearly stepped in, and this is the role she's filled all her life, and she's always like, she's the perfect bridesmaid. This is why everybody asks her again. She organizes everything.
She's
on top of super type A. I think Gen X calls it type A, Gen Z calls it eldest daughter, millennials just sob into their pillows. So
it's just so accurate.
People pleaser is what we say, honestly. But it's so that is kind of the setup. This is where she does it. She also says she loves weddings, but that's really like the trope and kind of the type of character. And a journalist played by James Marsden realizes this, being a guest at one of these weddings, because the movie starts out with her having two weddings the same night and having to wildly kind of switch between them and taking a taxi back and forth and changing the outfits.
Which is funny, but actually could have been funnier if you had leaned into the kind of physical comedy of it. Yeah. But she's good at it. Like, this is the thing. Yeah. But at that point, the movie hadn't won me over yet. Like, the thing that I realized watching kind of two Katherine Heigl movies in one go is I actually like Katherine Heigl as an actress. But not really at the beginning of this movie. Like, it takes a while for me to come on board with her character and the way that
you need to understand her motivation, which you don't immediately if you see them do this. The thing, so it need to get this away, like right out of the gate, is that I've seen that one a few times. I think I even saw it in theaters. The movie that we still haven't discussed that I've seen 100 times is Runaway Bride. And it took me until watching it this time for the podcast to realize how much 27 Dresses kind of lifts from Runaway Bride. Not in like an obvious way at first, but there's a lot of commonality between the two. One of the big commonalities is the setup is a journalist. The male protagonist is a journalist that writes about the female protagonist. Of course, in Runaway Bride, that's what the catalyst, this is what kicks off their meet cute. But they're both kind of urban legends that have something to do with weddings. And then obviously it becomes kind of the breaking point of him realizing he doesn't want to write this thing anymore, because it's not going to make her look good. But by the time they've fallen in love, blah, blah. So, but that setup is very interesting in that regard. Also, the fact that she's this people pleaser, because one of the reasons I always end up liking Runaway Bride, and without talking too much about that now, but it is also that kind of the underlying thing about why she gets like bolts every time before the wedding is because she always lived her life just for other people, including her father and these husbands, or would be husbands, and never realized what she wants for herself. And I think those aren't the things where somebody could claim like copyright infringement, but those are still such basic tropes that clearly worked so well in Runaway Bride that they make enough of a setup that you can spin this out of it. And I don't think it's particularly coincidental.
I think also like the first thing that I noticed, and I did not notice the Runaway Bride connection until you pointed it out, Edward Burns playing her boss is basically Hallmark Richard Gere. He looked like a slickified version of Richard Gere in this movie, like the way that he's styled.
Ex-husband in The Holiday.
Is that him?
Because I think I looked at him like, where have I seen you and not liked you before? It's because he's the Cameron Diaz's cheating ex-husband, who granted only has one scene basically at the beginning of The Holiday. But yeah, he's also bland. I think this is the problem. Like, the problem with this is like her. So it starts off also with her being in unrequited love with her boss, and she's also doing the super people pleasing thing with him, where she's his assistant and just does everything for him and just hopes he will finally fall in love with her. And it's really pathetic. As her snarky best friend Judy Greer points out,
Wonderful.
Judy Greer typecast as the snarky best friend, which she
But
literally
so good.
was in 13 going on 30 as well.
I loved her so much. Like the first 20 minutes of the movie, I just wanted the movie to be about her.
Yeah.
Because she's just so good. Like,
Yeah. I mean, she works, like, Judy Greer would just be working. Like, the definition of working actress is Judy Greer. She usually doesn't still have big parts, but she's clearly made enough of a career and money of just being the best friend in a bunch of well-selling rom-coms.
Being a bit of a live wire, she's just always a little bit unpredictable, which is a fun quality to see on screen.
And similar like Katherine Hahn for a really long time. It's Greer never really got a big meaty TV role to get her. I think there was a few things. Like recently she popped up as Owen Wilson's ex-wife in that golf show he did with Mark Maron on Apple TV.
Okay.
But it's also a really small part.
She's in Arrested Development, kind of like in a similar, like, unpredictable woman part. There is I think a discussion between her and Katherine Hahn where they talk about that we may have discussed this in our Katherine Hahn heavy review of He's Just Not That Into You.
No, that's what we haven't done that. You mean
no, the other one. Yeah.
The stupid annoying Kate Hudson movie. I don't
that
like
one, the Kate Hudson movie. And that they would do basically a movie that was a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead of rom-coms, where it's always about the best friends, and off in the distance you see the main couples getting married, which I think conceptually is great, but like so many things that conceptually are great would be really hard to actually work out as a movie. But yeah, she is in that same kind of bucket with Katherine Hahn, like coming up in that generation. I have always just liked her. Like she has that energy that she brings, the snarkiness that she brings is just always something that I'm immediately attracted to. I wanted to see more of her in this movie. She doesn't have a small part in the movie.
There's a few actors, from other things in this, essentially. Like it's the usual that what rom-coms often have, where it's just bit parts of these people that have popped up in other TV shows. Like Melora Hardin is James Marsden's editor, and funnily
basically playing her role from The Office.
Yeah, it's also funnily she's also a magazine editor, kind of like a Devil Wears Prada character in a show called The Bold Type. That was kind of
I saw a couple episodes of that a while ago. There's also Maulik Pancholi, who is on 30 Rock, and Maulik Pancholi and our reporter hero have kind of like almost like a Sorkin-esque relationship of walk and talks.
Yeah,
there's Kristen Ritter, who just randomly is in
was also randomly in the office that Katherine Heigl and Judy Greer work in, and then obviously the other bigger part is Katherine Heigl's younger sister, Malin Ackerman, that we talked about before, because she's also in the proposal. And then realized the last thing we both saw her do was host Eurovision. Because she's Swedish.
Oh, I completely forgot about that. I completely forgot about that. Yes.
Because she had that moment in the mid-aughts, early aughts, where she was in a bunch of American movies, usually playing second fiddle, and I think at some point kind of went back to Sweden.
It's really weird. Like, it's a really... Because the thing that strikes me about her, because she is kind of like very conventionally attractive, blonde, like would slot in perfectly in Hollywood, always plays the person that you're not supposed to be with, which is a weird choice. Maybe it's because she's Swedish. Maybe it's because, I don't know. She just doesn't seem to...
perfectly like she's serviceable, but she also doesn't necessarily have the leading, like, or at least maybe it also maybe has to do with the scripts she's given. But I mean,
you're always fine with like her being there. She doesn't have oodles of charisma, at least not in the roles that I've seen her.
I buy her more as the kind of self-centered person she's here, and I like her better because that gives her an edge. In a way, like, and because, like, and I mean, this takes us to the plot setup of that also happens is that now we know that, like, Katherine Heigl's in love with her boss, her younger sister shows up, meets her boss at an office party she takes her to and then hits it off with him. But their relationship is also based on a bunch of like white lies or bigger lies of like who she's framing herself to be. So he falls in love with her and they really quickly get engaged and want to get married. And so Katherine Heigl now suddenly has to organize her own sister's wedding to the guy she's in love with.
Yeah, which feels like a breaking point is coming, and it is coming. It comes a little later than I wanted it to come, but she does in fact explode, and when she does, it's kind of glorious. Although then there's a whole scene at the wedding where she overdoes it, and
like the dinner or like the whatever, like she shows a bunch of clips and kind of exposes her sister for who she really is, and then that falls apart. And I think that's an interesting thing because a lot of like Aline Brosh McKenna stuff does that, or at least I mean, where there's a like I mean, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is all about women being unhinged or actually mentally ill. And that's why I thought Bride Wars was hers, which apparently it isn't, but that plays into a very similar trope of like women being mean to each other, but for like reasons of like basically just being unhappy with themselves. And then being under a lot of pressure to conform to certain things in society, usually like the kind of mad woman trope of like, oh, you know, having just talked about is Taylor Swift of record, you know, nothing like a mad woman. What a shame she was mad. Like
we have opinions.
But it's so anyway, those are kind of the setups, because then the journalist starts following her around because he's pretending to write up because he's the journalist of the wedding section. This is also important. This is why he is at that wedding. And he's supposed to now do the write-up of her sister's wedding.
Yeah.
But he really just wants to follow her around and writes this like in-depth piece on her wild story of like having been always 27 weddings and always being the bridesmaid. And what doesn't work for me here is that this also kicks off because he finds her like
her file
essentially kind of file effects diary
and
thing,
then goes through it.
Just all her private shit,
fine. And like never addressed,
and then uses that to call her and kind of like intrude on her life to write this investigative piece on
like her. I was watching this, and like the only thing you're supposed to do in that case is open the file of facts, see if you can find a phone number, call the person,
usually and then things have a thing in that this belongs to a phone number for
and not reason. Look through the fucking thing and then steal a page, which he does,
and then write in his own name over some of her appointments.
It's like really, it really feels weirdly toxic and unnecessary.
And I don't know why. Yeah, they made James Marsden kind of unlikable, which is difficult. I mean, he can play full of himself and air it really well, for instance.
Yeah,
he's usually still likable.
I think half of that is him being there's sirens.
Yeah, there's a siren.
There's the start. Half of that is him being a complete prick in the beginning, and half of him is just having that CW hair that makes you want to punch people.
No, but that is really the thing. Otherwise, I do like him in this because I usually always like him in things. Like I've been a fan of his stuff since he was on the 5th season of Ally McBeal. Nobody still watched, and.
He does pop up in things. He was on
like
that Christina Applegate show.
He was really good in Hairspray when they did that Hairspray movie in the early, like around that same time. He's fantastic, and we should maybe talk about this at some point because it does qualify as a rom-com. Enchanted. He's He's the stupid animated then real life prince in that, and that's so a fun one, good because he's really, really good at hamming it up. Actually, he's kind of underserved by this movie.
I think this is the problem, especially with the beginning part of the movie, because this is a movie that I started watching. I watched it together with Carrie, and we just kind of sat there and I was just kind of like mouthing off and complaining, like literally out loud, like, "What are you doing with the fucking file of facts? What's going on? Like, just you're an asshole," and didn't like him very much, didn't like her very much because she's very much a doormat in the beginning. And what the movie does to redeem this when it shows them actually in a room together and actually kind of playing off each other is what turned it around for me. It still doesn't like negate his
because
asshole
they're
behavior.
both good enough actors. I don't think they have the most amazing chemistry with each other that I've ever seen, but it's fine.
It's perfectly fine.
And again, they're both good enough on their own that they can salvage whatever's going on. And I mean, Aline Rush McKenna is usually not a bad writer either, but something just doesn't quite come together for me in this movie that mostly just makes it mid in the end. I think there's a bunch of good ideas.
That's it.
I think maybe there's actually more to say about this person, like, again, more about the internal women's struggles that are happening here with her sister, and like these two women clearly not liking themselves and like dealing with that, which feels very Aline Brosh McKenna. But then it somehow has a recycled Runaway Bride plot tacked onto it to turn it into a rom-com, and then it doesn't fully hang together anymore.
It's also you know, a very late 2000s or early 2010s movie in the sense that he's a reporter and that still pays money. Like there's like a, if you made this movie today, like his job is what? And that's a thing that people give you money for? Like it feels like a weird,
I mean, wedding columnist, there's a wedding columnist of the New York Times. She still gets work.
But it does, yeah. I mean, he works at the New York Journal, resurrected for just this movie.
So it's supposed to be sort of that. New York has enough of an wedding industry that this makes sense. I mean, it is also a plot point in things like Sex and the City that there's this famous wedding column women want to get into. And for women of a certain status, that is enough that gets read. I've read the New York Times wedding section exactly once when they did a write-up of Josh Radnor's wedding, where everybody got snowed in, which was really fun. All the journalists got snowed in too.
There's a rom-com.
Honestly, yeah. It was so like reading that, it was so filmic that I kind of want to see a plot set at that wedding, at Josh Radnor's wedding. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, it doesn't quite fully hang together. I mean, it kind of goes exactly where I expected to go, which rom-coms tend to do, but I think I'm still almost more interested in, again, what like happens with her sister and how that gets resolved and them falling in love sort of at the same time. I mean, there's a charming enough scene where they I forget where they're even supposed to go. The movie finds a way to get Katherine Heigl and James Marsden all go on a road trip together to upstate New York. Thing. Yeah, to upstate New York, have car trouble, and then strand at some roadside bar where they get super drunk, do an impromptu sing-along to Elton John's Benny and the Jets, and then hook up in the car.
Yeah, which that scene is that's a perfectly fine rom-com scene. Like I was happy with that. That was fun. That was well done. It's very predictable because the moment
memorable thing. Yeah. I think
the moment that they get in the car and it starts raining and you sit there and you go like, that car doesn't look that expensive. This isn't an expensive movie, but they can crash that car. That car's gonna crash. Like that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun. It's well done. It's motivated. It's my favorite sequence in the whole thing. Second favorite is the one where she tries on all the dresses the first time that they actually have some kind of chemistry actually on screen together. This is another thing. They aren't really together that much in the beginning, which I think is really always the movies that I buy the relationships off the most is when the characters actually spend time together. This is another problem, Anyone But You, that we discussed, that they basically have like a whole day of getting to know each other. In something like When Harry Met Sally or Before Sunrise, the first one. That's the whole movie. That's them getting together and feeling for the characters. This is the beginning sequence of Anyone But You.
Almost feels tacked on to it.
Yeah.
There's something else that clearly somebody wanted to write about more than this, right?
Just had to get that out. I still don't like
how you got this movie made. Yeah. So it's I mean. And the scene where she tries on the 27 wedding dresses apparently I gotta say, all the costume designers clearly had fun coming up with super ridiculous dresses and corresponding
The Lil Bo Peep is pretty good.
corresponding theme weddings as well, which is a whole thing, and kind of making a bit fun of that whole industry, obviously. Um, and it's somewhere in the trivia on IMDb, it says they had a hard time finding things that Katherine Heigl actually didn't look all that good in, because it's very hard to make her look bad in a dress.
I mean,
But
that is the
that's why
thing.
they had to be ridiculous. And yeah, and then again, it unfolds completely as expected to. Like, he doesn't want to run the piece anymore. The editor runs it anyway. There's a fallout. Then there isn't.
Then
Yeah.
they make up, and it's
and then they get married in the end in a flash forward, and we get the sense that her sister might get back together with her
fake
boss.
gear. Yeah.
And
there's a fun little scene where she finally comes around, because she needs that for her character development, towards the end of the movie, where she finally admits to her boss that she's in love with with her boss, and then her boss basically just kind of like reacts immediately and kisses her, and she's like happy, but also like then they part, and they're like, yeah, didn't feel anything. Like, kind of like a very clear, we need to resolve this plot point. It's a weird thing to me that doesn't. This is a thing that I don't think is a real, so much of a real life thing. I think perhaps because she's had this whole other life and she's actually already internally moved on. But if she's really, really into this guy for years and years and years and years, and then he finally just like does this sweeping romantic gesture, you would have at least felt something, right? She must have already internally moved on, and I don't think that really tracks the way that it's presented.
Yeah, it kind of takes away from the fact that for a while this is sort of a love triangle in a way, because we kind of wonder if she will get together with the boss and like screw over her sister, but you need to get out of that again, and because that can't happen. Like, the sisters can be mean to each other, and that thing needs to be resolved clearly also between them, and things that clearly also have to do with their childhoods without their mother and all of this. This is, again, Aline Brosh McKenna is clearly much more interested in what's happening with the women here, and still, it also doesn't get to do that fully, and this is why it kind of...
Yeah, it feels like we have kind of like a similar problem, though, that we did have with the Judd Apatow movies in terms of the internal things in the discussions. A lot of the fact that we get them discussing this, and we get the rivalry between the sisters, that's very real, and that's very well done. But again, it kind of detracts from the fact that her internal monologue and her actually being with this guy that's not that much of the movie in comparison. I always feel like what rom-coms do right, the ones that I really tend to like, and again, I'm going back to When Harry Met Sally, because that is the gold standard. It brings the people that you're supposed to care about together for most of the movie, so you can have them kind of rub up against each other and test each other out and have it feel like a real relationship. And this movie does that in the one sequence that I really like. It does that, but not so much in the rest of the movie.
Yeah, and we don't know enough about James Marsden, because we spend so much time with the love triangle and the sister and all of that stuff that he falls short. Like, when Knocked Up, it was sort of reversed, where we sometimes didn't know enough about what's happening with the women. Here we don't really know what he's up to. Like, I mean, we learn, which is a big trope, that like we think he's super cynical about all these weddings he writes about, and he's not interested in love, and then at the key point he admits that he really cried at that one wedding she really loved reading about, because she also, being obsessed with weddings herself, reads his column all the time, and it's and it feels important, of course, that he comes around to admitting that he is actually sensitive and he does actually care. But that's all we know about him.
It feels a little paint by numbers. It feels like the Hallmark stipulation that if you're going to do a Christmas movie, one of the people doesn't like Christmas and has to come around to liking Christmas at the end. It really is kind of plug and play.
Yeah. So, I mean, that sort of what's happening with this movie, honestly. I mean, that's the thing. There's also not that much, there isn't really memorable dialogue. That's kind of, it kind of
No.
passes you by, which is sad.
It's very functional. I think this is the thing about this movie. It's very functional in the way that I think also says something about the way that these kinds of movies were done at the tail end of the mid-budget cinema rom-com era, right? It wasn't the big giant Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan starring vehicle anymore, but we're still kind of keeping that pretense. But that also means that you kind of, within that studio, you need to do this in order for it to play well to these audience, kind of very, very structured system isn't quite the right word.
You can't sell a dramedy to a mainstream studio at the time about the inner life of women and the wedding industry. But if you slap on some tropes, you can probably sell a serviceable enough rom-com because it's a proper chick flick, quote unquote. It sometimes feels like that kind of happened with it, and and I mean, it's really just paint by numbers. I mean, the most memorable things that do stick with me are all the dresses and that Benny and the Jets scene, and that's about it. Like, otherwise, it's also just, it's New York that we've seen a million times. It doesn't particularly do anything interesting with that either, probably because filmed most of it in Canada and then had like a week to go to Central Park.
That was my second note for this movie, is literally NYC, check. It's just like, it's there, it happens, you get like the iconic shot of the Brooklyn Bridge through that one street that you can see it.
Yeah, and then Central Park walking around and then going to the
Bethesda
boathouse.
Fountain. Yeah, we just like at the boathouse. We check all these things off. But unlike When Harry Met Sally, it doesn't feel like a lived-in world. It feels like New York is the rom-com place. We're going to show you the place.
Once I realized the Runaway Bride connection, it's even weird. Her dad has a hardware store, and I'm sure they still exist, but it feels, that's a small town thing. And you know why? Like the dad in Runaway Bride has a hardware store, but it's immediately more interesting because by that point she has basically taken it over and having a female protagonist run a hardware store in a small town.
I never noticed these things. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's also because you have not, for some reason, watched Runaway Bride like 30 times, and I think that number is low, honestly. Kind of want to like just watch it after this, but I will save it for when we actually do it. Yeah. But it's just cobbling together a few things here that don't.
Which is, again, I think this is also symptomatic of where we are in the arc of the rom-com, because we're still trying, we're still trying to make rom-com happen at this point, but maybe a little bit half-heartedly, and neither Heigl nor James Marsden have had like a Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan style career after this, like very clearly,
and also I think. Two reasons. One of them obviously being, like we discussed in a Knock Club episode, that Heigl sort of became persona non grata for some people who didn't want to work with her anymore because they were labeled as difficult for good reasons or not. Some of them having to do with a woman, apparently being a woman with opinions on the industry and working condition, maybe also just personal conflict that arose from it. And I mean, I think James Marsden has a decent career, but also because he's widely underserved about this. So he's not just a classic rom-com lead. Again, mostly he's just really good musical performance. So he's done a bunch of that. So things we already mentioned, like Hairspray and Enchanted and so on. He recently did that Amazon thing, Jury Duty, where he played himself.
I know what that is.
That conceit of where everybody's an actor except for the main guy they threw into this and pretended it was actual jury duty in LA, and Marsden plays funny version of himself, but he's actually really good at that. Like, he's a decent comedic actor, and I think he would be a good enough rom-com lead to do something else, but it feels like maybe he, despite his looks, is actually interested in some other things as well. So, and then no more rom-coms get made.
I think that's the thing, right? The career of Katherine Heigl is both tied to her becoming persona non grata for a lot of Hollywood because she's supposedly difficult to work with, and also just because she is literally like saying things that aren't helping the selling of a movie in what is clearly a hard time to be selling that kind of movie in Knocked Up. And also the fact that this is where you became a star, right? Julia Roberts becomes a star through the rom-com. Meg Ryan clearly becomes a star through the rom-com. Even in the 80s, a bunch of these like maybe rom-com-y or rom-com-ish or rom-com adjacent movies like Working Girl are where you can become that kind of star. I mean,
Brooke Shields.
Yeah.
I mean, Brooke Shields was
But those movies disappear. So like Katherine Heigl isn't liked by a lot of people. And then there's also the kinds of movies that would make you a rom-com star are just not made anymore. So where is she supposed to go, right? This is kind of the thing in an alternative world in which she's born 20 years earlier and she becomes the rom-com star in the 90s in like the Meg Ryan, Julia Roberts era. This might have gone very differently.
Sorry, there's a cat on my lap and he needed to participate in a conversation.
We have, I never know what makes it into the show, but probably the cat and the sirens.
Next to the microphone. Or he's needy and probably wants more food.
Yeah. I think this movie made me think much more about the conditions under which it got made.
Yeah.
The structure of the movie. Yeah. And kind of, it is, and even without recognizing the Runaway Bride connection, it feels very epigonal. It feels very knockoffy in the sense that it just inputs. This is the conflict. This works. It's very classic. Structure is important. But
what is a rom-com?
Kind. That's even unfair to Aline Rush McKenna, I think.
Yeah.
But it's clearly, it's clearly like the 7-minute movie and everything happens when it's supposed to happen. Yeah. Which, again, I'm a big fan of structure because I think if you understand structure correctly, you get to play within it and it is better for it. If you have no structure, then it just kind of is weirdly unmoored from reality and from narrative. Yeah. But if you stick too closely to the structure and essentially make a high budget, slightly more raunchy Hallmark movie, I don't know that's going to get asses in seats in the cinemas.
Yeah, and again, at that point, it's already running up against Judd Apatow kind of dominating what's left of the genre, which has shifted towards that more sex comedy slacker thing. That seems to be doing well because it gets men into the cinema as well and everything. Yeah. And the usual systematic issues. And I mean, this is the thing. Like, I mean, my notes for 27 Dresses are like half a page of scribbles.
I have more, but I have way more up.
Exactly. Also, but I mean, also in terms of like ratings, it gets to a 40% tomato meter, 57 popcorn. It's basically as so many rom-coms do, except for the really, really good ones. And I kind of agree. I'm more on the tomato meter end. This doesn't reach more than 40% for me in terms of like, I've seen it a few times. I can't fully tell you why either.
I mean, it comes up like I had like I tweeted this out yesterday. Like, basically, did you know that if you have time on a Saturday, you can just put on a movie and nobody will stop you? And sometimes I have in that mood where you just kind of like, you know what? I'm going to put on a random rom-com I've never heard about and see what happens.
I would watch Runaway Bride for the 35th time over this. Like,
I think I would not do either, honestly.
Bride, if I like. Right now, if I'm like, I'm probably after this, it's Sunday afternoon, I can just put on a movie. I would definitely want to put on Runaway Bride again, or When Harry Met Sally, or You've
Yeah.
Got Mail, because it's fall, and not this. And I think I've officially seen it enough times now that I had to watch it again for the podcast.
Yeah.
I also don't know when I last watched it. I think not that long ago, but before that, it happened so long that I barely remember that at some point I was like, I think I haven't really seen this since it maybe came out or something. Let's look at it again. But now I've been at like 3 or 4 times, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. It's like The Proposal. It's kind of, nah. Maybe also
Once
it
on an airplane,
appealed.
then
Maybe it appealed to me more when I was younger, when this first came out, and like I hadn't thought about all these things all that much, neither films nor some of the tropes that now bother me about it. Like the thing with him going through his shit, and
which I think also is another reason why the studio rom-com. I think there's never just one reason for anything, right? The joke is that historians always want things to have 3 reasons, but the truth is we want them to have like a whole bunch of reasons that we can't agree on whether they're actually the reasons for the thing. And a lot of things came together, but one thing that also plagues these 2010s rom-coms, and why I think the Apatow movies work a little better, is that people feel like we're in a new era of sex and gender expression, and the whole like very obviously kind of patriarchal structure of the rom-com is not something that is a mainstream thing in the sense of like everyone will agree that this is something you can watch, right? The era of When Harry Met Sally, a lot of people don't like, like sappy movies. A lot of people don't like romantic movies. There isn't really a discourse in the world where people are talking a lot about, oh, movies shouldn't be doing this because that's not feminist. Oh, this is like, that really comes in the 90s and turn of the century, and it really reaches its height with also the criticism of earlier rom-com movies. We talked about Love Actually. We talked about how Knock gets criticized, sometimes even unfairly, because it is not in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, and I think by that point, people are already starting to really, as you said, criticize the early stuff. So that's why then Apatow kind of can sweep in and go, this is at least something different. Like, this is also more about the slacker type, and
And it is really, if you think about Apatow, it's kind of a hybrid, right? He always makes these hybrid movies, and they're hybrids of 3 things, like the 80s, 90s slacker movie, the rom-com, in most of them, not all of them, and essentially the kind of American Pie-like sex comedy, right? Those are the 3 things to varying degrees that you always find in an Apatow movie. And I think either one of those alone used to be enough to get people to want to watch a movie. And by the 2010s, you kind of have to do all of it.
Yeah. And I guess, Katherine Heigl never builds up the star power to get anybody in the cinema. Then it's not her own fault necessarily. Again, maybe behind the scenes stuff, but like I'm just looking at what she did after, because it's really that she. I think whatever happened really screwed her over, because she also doesn't return to television. So she's trying to make more movies. Exactly. That's the thing I remember. And it's called The Ugly Truth with Gerard Butler, that she makes sort of right after this one. It comes out in 2009. There's a thing called Kiss and Kill she does with Ashton Kutcher in 2010. And then the Josh Duhamel one I remember from 2010 as well. She's in the terrible, terrible, terrible Happy New Year, when Gary Marshall is trying to do another Valentine's Day. And
do we still need to talk about that? Because I think at one year we just kind of want to rant.
Yeah, probably. And then I don't know, she does a film called One for the Money that isn't a rom-com, that also flopped. And she's in a film called The Big Wedding, I recall seeing in theaters. I
don't recall that at all.
Because it had, even though it terrible reviews, but I wanted to see something with my mom, and Diane Keaton was in it. Rest in peace, by the way. She just died when we were recording this. Yeah, and there's a few other films she's done, but they're all very, very mid, or most of them she hasn't seen. Oh, I'm sorry, she did apparently do 26 episodes of Suits in 2011, but...
Oh, okay. I haven't seen Suits.
Can't be bothered. But That's
The thing that
about
I know
it.
her from
Like,
is that Sarah Chalk, Katherine Heigl starring vehicle Netflix Firefly movie,
yeah.
which is I'm going to be honest. I think it has 3 seasons. I watched 2 of them and I thought it was fun enough, and
But I
I
think
never
that
bothered to
was
watch the last one.
almost her comeback because
Yeah.
that was more recent.
I think that's the thing that I watched before I kind of returned to these, where I'm like, oh, I actually, she is the thing about Katherine Heigl. It's kind of a waste because she is very compelling in the sense that she
Yeah.
is, on the one hand, she is a good actress. She's really good when she has the material, obviously. She is very conventionally beautiful,
Yeah.
but she isn't confusable for any of the other blondes, right? She has very distinct features and she just has a certain kind of uniqueness about her. So you're like, oh, Katherine Heigl. You could identify her exactly as much as you would say, oh, you're not confusing Sandra Bullock or Meg Ryan for anyone else. She has all these qualities and it just didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess you can wrap this up.
Yeah,
There
it's
isn't
not
that much I
very
want to
long.
say
The
about
movie
it,
is
but and also the tagline is just as predictable. This January, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Or
literally based on an expression. Yeah.
she's about to find the perfect fit is also there, but
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Do you have a fake tagline?
Do I have a fake tagline? Eldest daughter, the movie, I guess.
That's pretty good. I think I had something with like the number of dresses, but it just doesn't quite work for me. Like it's one dress too many or like something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
yeah. I don't know. It's
27 weddings and another wedding.
Anyway. I think that's it on 27 dresses.